All right, guys, we are back. Before we start, please hit the follow, like, and subscribe button. It helps out way more than you can ever imagine. It helps me get these fighter stories out. Now, jumping into this next one, this guy was once 0-3 in the UFC, facing being cut and considered retiring. But then he completely reinvented himself through mindset training and vegan lifestyle. Now he's on a tear, knocking people out, getting fight of the night. Who is this guy? Today we find out the story behind the incredible comeback, Khalil Rountree. Reminder, this one is filmed 4 to 5 years ago, but it's awesome. Enjoy. Stepping into the cage is obviously that's brave enough, but after a fight to dig that deep, that's what this podcast is all about. I want to hear your life story. I think that brings people closer to each other, and I just want to dive into that. So, I want to look at it like a timeline. Your life like a timeline. So, where you were born, and we'll go from there.
Cool. But yeah, I guess from the start, I was born in Culver City, California, Los Angeles, which is pretty close to like the Venice Beach area. So I wasn't too far from there. And I was there up until I was 5, but my dad had died, and my dad was murdered when I was 2 years old. So from as long as I could remember, I didn't have a father. My mom never remarried when I was a kid. So I just had like my mom and my siblings, and that's all I knew. But as I started to grow, and just grow and mature as any young kid does, I start to understand what people are talking about around me, because I'm finally starting to learn how to speak and listen. And all of this stuff that I had gathered at that time was a lot of just like the pain that my mom was going through from, just recently losing my father to murder, and him being like the only man that really like changed her life in a way, because at the time I had 2 older brothers, and they both had separate fathers, but my father is the one that kind of took them in as his sons. So I got to hear like things like that. So all I heard about my dad was just good stuff, but I didn't know what that feeling was like to have my father's love, right? And then to also, be raised by a mother who's grieving because her life partner was murdered, so like just emotionally I'm kind of picking up off of her energy too, and she really she nurtured me in a way that was pretty special, because I was the only thing that she had to like remind her of my dad. So my mom always treated me, really good. Like she never really babied me, but she always like held me close to her, and she taught me how to kind of express what I was going through at a very early age. My mom was always kind of that person for me where I could talk about my feelings. I could talk about what I was going through, because she was always curious, because she just wanted me to, no matter what, just like be happy, So, it was around 5 years old when we had moved to Las Vegas, because my mom at the time was an in-home nurse. And well, she was a nurse at the hospital, but we went to Las Vegas to take care of my great grandmother, and so she was an in-home like nurse for her, what do they call it? Private home health type of thing. My great grandmother who was dying, we all lived in the house with her to make sure, or just to kind of like keep her alive for as long as we could. So she had passed shortly after. And so that was just kind of like another experience of like having to witness my mom lose another person who was like really close to her. You get what I'm saying?
Wow. And how old were you when your grandma passed?
At that time, I was six, five, like 5 or 6. Yeah, I was like pretty close to 6 years old.
So you
So
had like a year to get to know, like, did you know your grandma prior?
no, I didn't really know her or like know much of her or have much memory of her. Um, I think yeah, because she lived in Vegas and I had never really been to Vegas. So
Right.
yeah, I only got to know her a little bit, but it wasn't necessarily my connection to her. It was more my connection to my mom. And then like having to see my mom like go like add on to her grieving and just like just more weight carried on to my mom. Uh when you're a kid and you want to connect with your parents, if you see them drained, I'm sure you just like you connect to that emotionally. So we for whatever reason we ended up staying in Las Vegas. We never moved back to LA. And my mom did her best to just like work really hard to provide for us. So, and um at the time there was like her high school had boyfriend had like showed up and they had a thing and my mom ended up getting pregnant and having my younger sister. So by the time I was like approaching 7, and then now I had a baby sister. So like all of that to say, just being the baby, kind of seeing my mom go through this struggle, kind of like another guy came in, this thing happened. Now she's pregnant, has a baby, and just like work, work, work. I just like, I guess in a way I was like connected to like a lot of what my mom was doing and just kind of like, damn, like my dad's dead. I don't know what that's like. My mom's like a workaholic and like emotionally drained. Like life kind of sucks. Like I started to develop that mentality at like a very, very early age.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you didn't have any time to process anything.
Yeah, I think it
No, I
all
mean,
kind
neither
of,
did your mom.
yeah, I mean, she didn't have much time. And I think, yeah, I think the time that I used to process it all was kind of like my teenage years. So I'd say from like 11 to 17, 18, 19. Those were all the years that I spent kind of like processing, AKA like trying to just run from specific emotions, you know what I mean? And feelings that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you how did you notice that like the presence of a father wasn't around?
So when we had moved to Vegas, yeah, I was 5, and my best friend, I met the kid that lived across the street because we were the same exact age. We were new to the neighborhood, so we got greeted properly by our neighbors, and my best friend and I at the time we were starting school at the same school year. Like at the same time we were the same age, so we made friends really really quick. And in his household, like he had his mom and his dad. Dad was like in the military, had like everything together. Mom had a job. Um, and I spent a lot of time just hanging out at his house. And so like I kind of got to see how that was I think the first time that I got to experience on a regular basis like what an adult relationship looks like. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were always together. He would work, take care of certain things. She was, like just I was kind of like analyzing like, oh, this is what a household is like with, you know, with both parents. And then I'd go home and then I'd see just like my mom would come home from working, double shift at work, just like exhausted, still come and cook dinner for us. Never really like she always did everything to make sure like we had the best life possible, but you can always tell like that it was draining,
Oh
So
yeah.
like, I was like, damn, like if only there was a man, but not just a man, like if only I had my dad, especially because of all the good things that I was like hearing about him in the stories. Like I never heard any bad stories. So
Yeah.
I started to kind of understand like what it was that she was going through. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I look, I have one kid and my fiance is here all the time and she helps out. I help out. And it's still hard. I can't imagine how a single parent does it with
Yeah.
one, let alone three
Yeah.
or four. You said,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was three and then
jeez.
turned into four. And then it was that way for, I mean, as long as we can remember. Yeah.
But then she was there to express feelings to you. You know,
Yeah.
like that's special. That's really special.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I feel like we all tread lightly when we talk about our parents. Like my parents were amazing, but that's just one thing that was not conducive to my hometown was talking about feelings. You know,
Mm.
nobody opened up. So it's that's really special that your mom was able to do that.
Yeah, it still is, man. She's like, it's cool that our relationship started like that because now, like as an adult, like as adult male, like I can still just call my mom and talk about whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
anything and everything. It's like just like an open space to be able to do that. But I mean, I think I have that in multiple places, but I mean, like I think it's super special to have that with my mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And like
Yeah.
you said, especially for a male,
Yeah.
yeah, it's I feel like it's just coming around where guys are finally starting to talk about their feelings and talk about, just how things affect them.
Yeah.
So, for you to already have that as a child, I think it's already in you. So
Yeah,
it's
man.
nothing foreign, you know?
No, yeah. I mean, it almost feels like wrong if I'm not, kind of like speaking from like my heart space or not saying what I feel or what I think, if I try to cover it up, I think it just doesn't feel like I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Even if
That
it's even if it's through like poetry or like journaling or
yeah,
something, I have to let it out. I have to like however I'm feeling, I gotta let it out some way.
that is so cool because man, my dad great guy and we have heart to hearts now, but definitely back then when he was working and he was working with the guys, he worked for the power company. It was just you couldn't talk about anything. I remember like being on the phone with him and I'd be like, "Love you, Dad," and he'd be like, "All right, buddy, see you later,"
Yeah, yeah,
because he was in
cool.
the truck with the guys, right? Yeah, so I'm like, so you pick up on that stuff and you learn from your parents to protect yourself or protect your feelings or don't show your feelings. So that's really special that you're able to do that, and it's I envy you that you find it strange not to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think I owe it a lot to not only my mom, but like, just like my family. I think we have always just been like pretty big on love, like it's kind of what got us through everything in life, like my my entire family still, has like financial struggles and things like that. Like it's not, like we don't come from anything before us, like we're all just kind of
right.
trying to make things work in life. So the one thing that we kind of have always stuck to is like love is always good no matter what you're going through. When I was a kid, through some of the times growing up, like my mom working so hard, but still like maybe had to pay mortgage, but couldn't afford to keep the lights on. So like we'd went days without lights, but like we were all in it together, like we were all in it together. Like, okay, like we go borrow some candles from some friends down the street, or like we found ways to like get extension cords from our friends who had garages and like dads who had like tools and stuff. And we put together like 5 or 6 extension cords, plug it into the neighbor's house, and then like
Wow.
we moved the couches into the garage. We moved the fridge into the garage. We put a TV in the garage and we ran the cord next to the next door neighbor, just to like, boom, so we could have some lights at least, a place to just sit and watch TV, maybe looked at as wrong or people like, oh, you shouldn't be stealing from the neighbors. But like, shit, dude, we had nothing else. Like, like we
I
just,
mean, that's innovative.
like we put together some stuff to just be able to like survive, but still we're sitting on the couch together, just like okay, like this is how we're gonna get through this, this rough patch.
Yeah.
We're gonna stick together and that's it. Yeah, like if we have
Yeah,
nothing
well
else, we have each other.
that's yeah, that's also I mean that's a great lesson right there, right? Like you hit rock bottom, you don't stay there. Like you
Yeah.
figure it out. You got to figure it out. So yeah, that's really special. So what is it like for your family to see you I mean, do people say you made it like you've made it?
I think I've never really heard that, but I just get a lot of like support and encouragement. And I see that, my cousins and uncles and things are just really proud. Um, and they're always cheering me on and telling me like, keep going, like the sky's the limit. Don't stop. Like, you know, as they're like, it's good to see you happy finally because just I don't like I always wore my heart on my sleeve. So if I was sad or down or over it or just depressed about anything, my family would be able to tell. And so like I
Mhm.
guess for the first time in a long time, they're able to see me in like a different light where they see like they're like, you're happy, like you're shining, like keep doing what you're doing, like you've come a long way. And so those type of things are definitely encouragement and motivation, you know what I mean, to just keep going and yeah.
Right. So let's go back to your dad. I mean that what was the story? What happened? So at 2 years old, he was murdered.
Yes. So my dad was a man of like many trades, which is probably where I got it from, like why I just have an interest in so many things and so many just like secret like abilities, I guess. Um, he did a lot, but what he ended up doing until he passed was he was a tour manager and like a road manager for a group called Boys to Men and New Edition and a lot of guys who uh, were signed to like Motown records, stuff like that. So he was well known within the music industry at the time, and he had a lot of friends within the music industry. Um, and so in 1992, he was on tour, just working. They were in Chicago, and my dad was always a guy who he really liked to dress nice. He always either had like a suit or just like some type of nice clothing on, and he also wore jewelry. And so like I guess there were just some guys that wanted to rob him, so they tried to break into his hotel room in the middle of the night while he was asleep, and he had woken up and you know opened the door, sees two guys there, ready to like rob him. I think they were both were armed, or one of them was armed. So he gets into a fight with them and manages to handle one of the guys, but the guy with the gun ended up shooting him, like just like point blank in the head, and just like kind of left him dead in the elevator. And so um, the guys ended up getting caught, but for whatever reason, uh, I think they didn't do like any more than 10 years. Like it was way like for murder, like they got off really, really, really easily. And one of actually what's crazy is like one of my earliest memories, which is wild because I was only 2 years old, but I remember being at his memorial and at the funeral. And I remember seeing like hundreds and hundreds of people. And I remember it just being really nice. And I remember driving down the street and just seeing people like lined up on the street that he was born on. So he was like, there was a motorcade kind of, like the whole community was outside. Um, it was almost like a local like hero, local legend. So like wherever he came from, people knew him and people loved him and respected him because like apparently he did a lot for the community. Um, and so he also had a lot of memorabilia that he left behind from platinum and gold records that were like gifted to him, and just photos and photo books of just him with legends, like Muhammad Ali, and
Wow.
just people who I'm like, wow, like this guy kind of knew everybody. And like it, from the looks of it and from what I hear, it's like he was loved by everybody that he knew too. So I'm like, shit, like especially being a kid and like not having any black superheroes or anybody who I could be for Halloween, where I felt
Right.
like I could take over the world. In a way, I felt like, my superhero like was murdered, and yeah, so like I think I think when I was maybe like 9 years old is when my mom was able to kind of tell me what really happened. And I was like maybe like 9 or 10. I think I might have been 10. And that's where I started to develop this like idea that the same thing was going to happen to me. So like at 10 years old,
Wow.
knowing that that's what happened to my dad, kind of always having questions about like, where's my dad? Why did he die? Oh, he got murdered. And then my brain started saying, oh, okay, well, the same thing is going to happen to me. So you got to think 10 years old, 9 years old, that's when your brain starts to develop, right? That's when you start to develop your personality. When you start to
Yep.
go to, fourth grade, fifth grade, where you're like, okay, I want to wear these clothes today because this shows who I am, how I feel,
Yep.
And like, I was just like, I want to wear kind of like darker clothing, like whatever, I just felt like my destiny was like, oh, I'm going to die. So, whatever. You get what I mean? Like,
So, so it, do you feel like it empowered you or it made you scared
it
or
made
more
it
empowered?
made me scared. I wasn't empowered, like I didn't have anybody to empower me. I didn't have anybody to like instill that like courage in me at a young age. Like I had my mom who was grieving, who was more like keeping me safe versus like go out, go play sports, go do this. You got this. She was like, you okay? How you feeling? Is there anything I can do for you? Do you get what I'm saying? So I was more like, I wasn't like empowered at all. I didn't know what empowerment
Yeah.
was until I was fighting MMA, like training when 20 years old, really,
Yeah.
or yeah, like, yeah. So I was just more like scared, which then that fear turned into more like just jaded, like just kind of like, whatever. Like, and growing up in Las Vegas, where like, I mean, all the billboards and stuff that we see for advertisements are like casinos and strip clubs and all the, so I'm just kind of like, all right, like this is what I got, you know? It was yeah. I mean,
Wow. So, yeah.
I'm not complaining about it at all, like I'm very grateful
No.
for like what I've been able to like experience and go through and who I am today, and everything kind of like everything that my mom like did to make us to make us like strong men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it sounds like you have two superheroes, or y- your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
It sounds like you got two of them to look up to. Um, yeah, the only reason I was saying empowered is because, some people could think, nothing matters anymore. So I don't. Then they feel like they have this super confidence of, I'm invincible.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Like it would make you scared. Did you ever feel like, how old were your brothers?
So I have one brother that's 5 years older than me, and then I have a brother that's like 7 or 8 years older than me. So the gap between like the 5 year brother was pretty cool. Like that's a pretty easy gap, especially when you get into like I'm 10, he's 15. Like yeah, that one was good. But my older brother, but they both played sports and they were both like they look different than I am. They're like light skinned guys, curly hair, pretty boys, so they were like more interested in like getting girls and playing sports. And I was just like, I want to play music and you know, like draw and paint things because that just seems cooler to me.
I mean, that's definitely awesome. Music. I wish I had some sort of music background, but so what did that make you feel like you had to be the man of the house, or your brothers were the man of the house? Like how did that play out?
I mean, like my brothers were definitely like the men of the house, but I think it was more just the three of us made one man, you
Gotcha.
know,
Yep.
like my oldest brother never really enforced like any rules, you know, like he was kind of like a free spirit. He did whatever he wanted to do. And so that's kind of the that's kind of the blueprint that he set for the household is just like, you know, if you wanted to go out, you go out, you know, things like that. So then my middle brother started doing that. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go out then too. So we weren't really like, when my mom was gone at work, you know, we'd be home for a bit just to kind of like eat and change clothes or maybe hang out with friends over at our place. But for the most part, we were just like outside, you know,
Yeah.
we were more outside a lot or just spending time with other people. And then we'd all mostly like come together at nighttime
Gotcha.
until it became a thing where like my brothers got older and I was the one at home like taking care of my little sister because they were teenagers. They were like out, you know, partying, hanging out, doing their thing. And I was just at home, either like playing music, video games, something like that. And like taking care of my sister.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What'd you play?
Oh man, my first instrument was drums, and then I asked for a bass guitar, and then I asked for an electric guitar, then I asked for a keyboard, and then I went from keyboard to like a beat machine, drum machine. Then I went from that to turntables. Then I went from that to kind of mixing them all together. So I always ask for a new instrument for either my birthday or Christmas. And so I just ended up kind of building my own little studio in my room and just teaching myself how to play and just kind of play music that I liked, learn songs just by listening to them. And then I just practice them to make sure that the sound matched. And then I started creating just kind of with my own music. And yeah, that was kind of like my outlet. Because I wasn't really social. I didn't want to really go out and hang out with my friends unless we were like either skateboarding or playing music.
Yeah. Do you ever see
Yeah.
a correlation between music and training?
Um, I think so. I love to train to music. I feel like it just helps kind of like keep certain rhythms. Um, I feel like certain songs or certain genres bring out different emotions like while I'm
Oh, for
training,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know, and help
Yeah.
me just like with mentality. So yeah, I definitely see the two. With playing though, yeah, I think playing music and fighting are pretty similar too. Depending on how you look at fighting. You know,
Yeah.
if you look at it as like an art form and you want to, you know, kind of express yourself in a way that's artistic, then there's different rhythms that you can have, you know, footwork and things like that that are, you know, can be like a masterpiece. Some fights can be a masterpiece, a masterclass, and I think the same thing with music.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So I want to go back to when you said when you found out when your mom told you about your dad and it brought up fear. I so for me it kind of like I wondered if that ever turned into anger because it feels like
one
for
thousand
for
percent.
children. Yeah, right? Okay, so yeah, tell me, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, 1000%. So, my fear turned into anger. I'd say like I'd say around like fifth grade, you know, like it started to develop. Like that's where it kind of started showing its spurts shortly after I found out about how my dad was, you know, and like that he was murdered. And I was just like, okay, this sucks. So, um, being afraid also like, for instance, like when I think it was like it might have been fifth grade. I remember like I wore my NSYNC shirt to school. I loved NSYNC at the time. I felt
Who didn't?
like I felt like those were the guys that, like they got all the girls. They were like our generation's, example of masculinity, and but I was the only like big black kid that liked in sync. Like no one that looked like me liked in sync, like so I was wearing a t-shirt to school, I remember, and like just like I got slammed for it. Like I got like made fun of. And I remember just being like really sad and like humiliated. And that like but then like it couldn't have been shortly after that where so like that's what I mean about fear. So like for like I remember going back in the bathroom, I like turned my shirt inside out, and like I used to wear overalls at the time, so I like put my overalls on over my shirt. But then I kind of walked around with this like shame for the rest of the day and this like fear of going back to school the next day because maybe these kids are going to continue to laugh at me. So that fear also ended up turning into anger shortly after, because I remember I had like little flashbacks of like almost becoming a bully, right? And like I like would almost purposely start picking on the kids that I felt like I was superior to, or like, you know what I mean? Like I felt like
Yeah.
I'm bigger or whatever. Like I can pick on you, and it was just like, no. But at the time I didn't know any different, but like I
Mm-hmm.
was afraid to go to school because I didn't want to get made fun of. But if I make fun of someone else, then I'm no longer like the laughing stock because
Right.
I can just transfer it down. Obviously, it takes me to be an adult to kind of see the process of that. But um, yeah, so that after also kind of realizing from, I'd say like elementary school to about like a little bit before high school is when I realized like I don't necessarily want to hurt anybody else's feelings, because if I did that, me being who I am, I just immediately felt bad about it. Right. If I could
Yeah.
I could say something, I could push a kid down or something and they cry about it. And I'm like, oh, damn, like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I never say it, I'd be like, but damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
So, that's when I started to like listen to more like aggressive music and angry music, because it just, I was like, okay, I can't like, I don't want to take it out on anybody, but let me just like bottle it up. Let me just like keep it inside. And maybe if I like paint my nails black and put on black eyeliner and like I had like snake eye like piercings and I had gauged ears, and just like instead of in sync, I switched to Slipknot, and like I like to wear like, chains on my pants and like, just like, cause instead of like me being laughed at, it was more like, oh, they were like kind of more scared. Like, don't fucking talk to that guy. He's weird, you know? But I'm like,
It's so weird
hey,
how high school will change you.
yeah. But I was like, hey, at least no one's talking to me. So I don't have to worry about my
Yeah.
feelings getting hurt. I don't have to worry about anything. I have my headphones on, and pretty much my exterior says, stay the hell away from me.
Yep.
Just stay the hell away from me. So yeah, I mean, the anger, was so I didn't want to hurt anybody, so that's why I started listening to kind of like angry music, and then I started going to shows, like, to hardcore shows and punk rock shows and stuff where like that aggression was almost like welcomed and it was okay.
Yep.
And so that was my outlet for it, and I made a bunch of friends that felt just like how I felt, and kind of like disliked the world because we had a perception of like everyone's shit. And like everybody's just kind of like selfish, and just all whatever messages I was listening to at the time. And I found a place with like-minded people, and it was almost like sanctuary for me to support the mindset that I was in.
Yeah. I mean, look, I feel like we all go through that stage, right? I feel like it's when almost like the shelter that we've had our entire lives, where our parents are taking care of us, and loving and caring for us. And then when we get smacked in the face that first time, it's like that hard reality of, whoa, what is this? And
Yeah.
then you shift real fast. And that's pretty crazy that you realized or that you shifted to the bully, but then quickly realized you don't want to do that because
Yeah.
most people get stuck there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
most people don't get out of that. So that's cool. And you had an outlet. I mean, that's literally the name of this podcast, The Heart of the Bad Wolf. That's it. That was one of my questions for you is like when did like as cheesy as it sounds, when the bad pup when was it born? You know what I mean? Because I feel like we all have that good wolf in us, and then it turns into then there's a bad pup that just gets fed, and you kind of go through
Yeah.
that stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I was able to start kind of feeding the bad wolf, or like the bad wolf cub,
Yeah,
um, early on in high school, like my transition from middle school to high school. Um, that's when I really discovered, and my mom started giving me the freedom to like go on tour and to go to shows and to go to concerts and stuff. And
like
that's,
rock and stuff, like
yeah,
heavy
like
metal.
metal. Yeah. Yeah, like
Yeah,
for me, it was in middle school, it was more like punk and punk rock, no effects, AFI, uh, Dead Kennedys, like more like fast. It was like fast paced stuff. And then, um, I guess like as I matured and, started getting more testosterone, I was like, I need something more angry,
yeah,
and then so like I transitioned to like heavy metal, and then from like heavy metal to like death metal, and then from death metal to like gore. Like it just went very, very like deep black metal, and I was like starting to just like read lyrics and just kind of go into like a different world. And then, like I said, like the bad wolf cub started to get fed early on in high school, because that's where I started to make friends that were like-minded, and like go to concerts where I could like openly just like mix with adults,
yeah.
and and uh and start like jumping in mosh pits and like punching people for fun and getting this thrill out of, just like releasing whatever inner rage we had. Um, yeah, that, and then like, concert culture was like, I started, drinking at an early age. Um, and then like that only made me more fearless, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
Let me ask you a question. Like how do you feel about that now? Talking about it, like going to a concert and just hitting somebody. Like
I
how
mean,
does how does that feel?
I still do it.
You still go to those concerts
Yeah,
and
I still go to hardcore shows. Like I still have the same
wow.
friends. I've had the same friends for 17, 18 years now, man. Like
Wow.
yeah, like although
Dude,
like I
look,
have this as my profession, I still hang out with the same people that I did when I was 15, dude. You know?
what are you going for? Like headshot, body shot, like
No, it's
arm,
like,
get punched.
I mean, like it's more of just like, if you get in my way, it's like that's it. Because in the culture of hardcore, because it's like it's different. Like hardcore is more of a form of like punk music, but like a more hardcore version. It's tougher. The lyrics are a bit more meaningful. Um, there's a message behind it, but there's a culture behind it. Like hardcore music has been around, for a few decades now, and it's a great like safe havens for a lot of people. But like the way that we mosh, or the way that we pit, is different. It's like it's almost like a form of dancing, and we
Yeah.
swing and we punch, and sometimes, we do a lot of like head walking. So we'll jump up on the stage and just start running on the crowd as if it was the cement floor, or if I want to just like run over and just jump into the crowd and try to punch 10 people at the same time. It's like, okay, that's just what we do here. So it's not like we're like one on
Oh
one,
yeah.
like squaring up, and I see a guy and I punch him in the face, but like I'm kind of like owning my space with my arms and my feet and my legs, and I'm just like, punching the air and swinging my arms and just like kind of owning my space, and like stay away from me. I'm a lot more pissed off than you are. And if you get too close, you'll figure it out, you know? But if someone gets knocked down, it's like most of the time we like help them up. And, you know,
Right.
it's kind of just like we all know what we're going there to get into. And I mean, some guys, you know, some guys will, you can tell that they're intentionally trying to be assholes. And so, you know, some guys end up having to like fight, like actual fight and, you know, defend themselves. But for the most part, it's just like, it's a room of just like a bunch of pissed off adults just screaming and swinging with each other. And it's an amazing environment. I love it.
Yeah, I listen. I know my producer's geeking out right now because he went to New York underground, or is that, or New York hardcore?
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
exactly.
he grew up in that, and we had this long talk about it. I watched the whole thing. Like, so I'm from a small town. I never got to do any of that, but the closest for me, like, my hometown was 1,500 people, so ICP was really like big in my town, and
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
wanted to go to one of those concerts so bad,
Got
but
you.
also I was so afraid, like, in my town, I mean, 40, I think I graduated with 44 people.
Yeah.
So if you got beat up in school, everybody knew and you never washed that away.
Yeah.
So it was it was kind of scary for me of like never getting a fight. But then when I, started getting bigger and lifting and all that stuff, then I was like, what, who, trying to step up. But I always wanted to go to one of those concerts, but I was too afraid.
Yeah. So, I
Um,
mean, like ICP would be like the Powerpuff Girls compared to like the hardcore shows.
That's
You know, just
hilarious.
saying as far as just like how intense it can get and just like
Yeah.
the difference in like you know the crowds. It's really crazy, man. Especially like hardcore shows are mostly in smaller like bars or rooms, or if it's like a festival, then it's at like a big ballroom or outdoors or something. But for the most part, it's pretty intimate and it's like just this kind of like condensed ball of chaos.
So when did you step into your first training facility?
So that wasn't until I was 20. So my whole high school life, I went through phases. I went from like, you know, being into metal and then going to like hardcore shows. And then I'd still go to shows, but then I got more into like underground hip hop and graffiti. And so then I like started writing graffiti and kind of doing that life. And then um, I figured like that life was a bit too dangerous for me because like I got pretty deep into it and I started kind of experiencing just some like life threatening experiences. And there were just like people that I met within that like community that I was just like, okay, like if I keep doing this, I'm going to end up like that guy. And I definitely don't want to end up like
Like
that guy.
what?
Just like, you know, carrying guns, doing drugs, you know what I mean? Like, you know, getting arrested. I got chased by the cops a few times. And then like at the time, like at that point in high school, like I was already kind of overweight, a pretty overweight, heavy guy, didn't want to run, didn't want to do anything athletic. So I'm like, last thing I want to do is run from the cops and like run out of gas and then get, you know, and then get arrested. So like maybe this graffiti life isn't for me. Although I've always still loved graffiti, I still like, you know, do stuff on my own, like on my iPad and stuff, nothing illegal,
Yeah.
um, but that kind of drove me back to music. And so I started touring with my friends who were still playing. I didn't play in the band with them, but they ended up like they got signed to a record label pretty early on. And they were getting ready for like I think their first or second tour, like national tour. And so they were like, hey, if you want to come, we got an extra spot for you in the van. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I went on tour with them and just, you know, like started to, you know, kind of like continue down that same path of just kind of feeding that bad wolf and even more, you know, like feeding that bad wolf and the pack that it came with. And it just kind of drove me to a
So what
point
was
of like, where's the good wolf? Like searching for the good wolf because like the bad wolf
wow.
was just, you know, not helping me too much. And then
Yeah. So what
that's what led me to MMA.
was that drinking, drugs, both? What was that?
Yeah, I
What did
mean,
that
like
look like?
I hate to say, like I hate to claim drugs because like I know people who have been through like, you know, serious drug abuse. And so like I don't want to think that it was like I don't want to like say yeah, it was drugs and because I've like there's people that have been through like way more than I have. But I wasn't afraid to like experiment with like I'd say the most is like mushrooms and pills. I never did any like hard drugs because I was always like afraid of that, mostly because of my health. I had already felt like bad because I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and ate really shitty food. So I always had this feeling like if I do hard drugs, like I'll probably die. Um, but like anything else that was like more like numbing and like or would like kind of put me in more of like a daze, then I was all about that. Even if it was just like I'm gonna go to the grocery store or the pharmacy and just like chug a bunch of Robitussin for no reason, or you know, like
Wow.
yeah, just like that type
How
of
often
stuff.
did you
Just
do that?
um, it's hard to say. I mean, it wasn't like a regular thing, but it was something that like would happen every now and then. If it was just you know like I don't know, like let's say at most like 2 or 3 times a month. But it would be like that would just be one thing, or it'd just be like, hey, like let's spray 3 or 4 cans of spray paint into a bag and just breathe it in until we pass out, you know, just like
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then like, or if my friends like, hey, I got these pills, they're antidepressants, and like I take them and it makes me feel weird. I'm like, okay, cool, then you know, like just not even really caring about like what, you know, if I saw that it was just like something like nothing too like harmless, I guess, or if it was prescribed by a doctor, I'm like, okay, I'll take it even though I'm not prescribed it.
Hmm.
Um, on top of like drinking got pretty heavy to where like I felt like I had to drink almost like every day, you know. Um, yeah, that was just kind of something that helped me just not care as much about anything, really. I would
Well,
just
what do you think you were what do you think the big thing you were running away from was?
um I think just like feelings, man. Like I just wanted to run away from feelings. I'm a sensitive guy. I'm very empathetic. So like if like the more things that I felt and cared about, the more I felt like I was just getting hurt, you know? And like
Yep.
especially from like girls, like you know, like any girl that I ever had a crush on, like never chose me ever. Like it'd always be like my friend or you know, I would always just be like, "Oh, you're so cute. You're my friend." Oh, like, fuck. You know, like yeah, I'm never
Yep.
gonna get laid, you know, like just that like so feelings yeah, feelings mostly. I mean, that's really it. It's just like
Yeah.
I just felt so much and like I felt out of place just like especially just like my interests, you know, like my interests and like I didn't really have much influence. So I always felt like, yeah, out of place.
Well, like that never goes away, right? Like those feelings never go away. They're still there. And now,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
you're in an industry where it's, you know, fighting and men fighting and really putting your feelings to the side. So how do you do that?
um, I think like, you mean like in a fight? Like, how do I put my feelings to the side?
Well, I think that is probably pretty self-explanatory. You know,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
adrenaline takes over and you're there for a purpose. But I mean, like day to day, like you still have those feelings. Like, um,
Yeah. Yeah, I still have the feelings. I just think that like my surroundings nowadays are different. You know, like my circle of influence is different. So the feelings are different. Also, yeah, I also I don't remember when, but I came to, you know, I came to a point where I started to realize these things about myself and realize like, oh, I'm just like an empathetic guy. That's why I'm sad today. It's because, like my mom just called me or like my girlfriend's having a shit day and, this. And so like, that's why I feel low today. It's more because I'm kind of just empathetic to everything else that's going on around me. So it's not necessarily me. You know, it's just kind of what's happening around me. So how can I uplift the people around me with the energy that I have, you know, and just, yeah, kind of being more conscious of it and just like
Yeah.
noticing how I'm feeling and what I'm doing with that energy. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'll feel like super insecure and I'm like, like, like I feel shit today or I don't feel really good or I'm not like, I'm not really happy with where I'm at in life. And then I'll just be like, okay, go to the gym. Like go to the gym. And so I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And then by the time I'm done with the gym, I'm like, what's up? Want to grab coffee? Like it's so different,
Yep.
just being able to realize that like those thoughts and those emotions are kind of just they're coming from like external places mostly. And a lot of times we just have to, like do something kind of healthy to deal with that, to deal with those emotions.
Sh- sure. Well, I mean, look, I look at it more as a superpower. Like, you got a superpower. That's a gift. To
Oh,
be a highly sensitive person really is a gift. And it's almost like, those silly movies where you see somebody learns that their family's magic and they're like, I don't know how the hell to deal with this. And they're like blowing things up and all that stuff. And then they finally realize how to deal with it. And I feel like that's really what you got. I feel like, most people, if they're feeling insecure, they'll go do something stupid and they won't even know why,
uh,
you know? But you're able to tap into that and know what it is and know you need to go train or you need to go get it out or whatever it is.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I really think that's special.
Oh, well, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. Thanks. Yeah, because I just, I don't know. I guess for me, sometimes I explain it as if it's like simple, or I'm not really thinking about, you know, how everyone else is like processing it. I kind of sometimes I'm like, oh, it's that easy for all of us, but maybe it's maybe it's not.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I totally empathize on with you with the sensitive. You talk to anybody that knows me, they'd say I'm the most sensitive guy they know, and I mean to a point where I remember a week, I don't smoke pot at all. Like it gives me, I go crazy pretty much. So, but I smoked every single night that week to
Yeah.
try to get rid of my sensitivity, and it was just like. Why did I think that would work? Like, oh,
I
I'm not
mean,
sensitive anymore.
coming from someone who like I actually like I enjoy smoking.
Yeah.
Um, like not a lot. I couldn't even smoke like a whole joint to myself, if I'm being honest, like just very little. But if anything, that like heightens your sensitivity. At least it does for mine. I know when I
Oh
smoke,
yeah.
like I'm super sensitive and I like to put on music and just like be in my feels really. So
Maybe one day I'll get better at it. Trust me, I've tried every once in a while. And every time I get so paranoid.
yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, maybe it's not for
yeah.
you, man.
I don't think it is. Um, all right, so let's get back on the timeline. So you stepped into a gym
Yeah, so
when you
I
were,
started my first gym. I started training when I was 20. So,
yeah.
um, after that whole just kind of like realization of I have to do something different with my life. I'm following people on their own path and I'm not doing anything for myself and my health is at an all-time low. Um, you
Wait,
know,
can I stop you for a sec?
yeah.
I'm sorry to stop you. So you mentioned in the interview that you were overweight and about to commit suicide.
Yeah, so like that comes with just the during the tour. So I'm touring with my friends in in like metal metalcore bands and we're traveling around America and I told you I already had this feeling of kind of feeling out of place in my life for a very long time. And if anything, like that made me feel super out of place because we were just visiting places that I'd never been before. We went deep south, we went like, Canada, far north, and there were cool people in a lot of places, but still, no matter what, like I felt like I was just out of place. I was kind of sick of being like the token black guy everywhere we went. And like,
Mm,
and just like sick of being just the merch guy because like the band obviously is the one that get like the attention and they get paid more and they get to actually do what they love doing. I'm just here selling the t-shirts, man. Like, if
yeah.
anything, like kind of feeling like although I had a great job and it was like I had a lot of fun on tour, don't get me wrong, but like there were just kind of those triggers on a daily basis that like I was still at the bottom. Like, like I'm just at the bottom. So um in between tours I would go home to a two-bedroom apartment that I shared with my brother and my mom and my sister and my niece. So there was like four or five of us in a two-bedroom house or apartment, but one of the rooms we used for storage. So we really just lived in a one bedroom, and the rent was like $750, and we could not pay rent really, like $750 a month, and we were still struggling to pay rent. So, again, being someone who's like empathetic and sensitive, like my mom's depressed, my brother's depressed, I'm depressed. We had to get like, we're raising, my brother had a kid, so we were like raising a baby girl who was like one or two, or three or something like that at the time. My sister was in high school, so like our main priority was like making sure that she got good grades and getting to school every day. So like the money that we got together for gas was mostly to like kind of split the car and go to work and to take my sister and pick her up from school. Because you got to think about it. If we came and paid $750 rent, what makes us think that we can like, afford a new car and like drive and get us all like have enough gas to get us all to work and get my sister to and from school every day. Like
Yeah.
it's like, just, a lot of things like that and just like struggle. And at that point, it was like, for me, it was 19 years of struggle, man. Like 19 years of like deep struggle. And I was just like, man, I'm over it. Like, I'm just over it. Like, like I don't like, what's the point of living? I don't want to live anymore. And so like, I just remember like my intentions with the things that I was doing kind of like went in a different direction. So like I was still drinking, but now I'm like drinking, I'm like I'm, just like trying to almost like harm myself, not even almost like trying to
Mm,
harm myself. I'm like smoking more cigarettes, just knowing that it's terrible for me, knowing that I can barely breathe, seeing myself gain weight. I eat more, if I'm smoking, I like start coughing into the black stuff and I smoke more, just trying
wow.
to like, all right, like, let's get this over with.
Slowly kill yourself. Yeah.
Like, let's get this over with.
Yep.
And, and until like there was a time where like that the cause of all of that I had like a little bit of like a heart scare in the middle of the night, and it scared me more than I thought, like the idea of like dying, because I really felt like I was close to it. And like, to be honest, I don't remember if I had like taken pills that night or something. I don't remember. Like I was like days and days and weeks of just this cycle. I don't really remember
Yeah.
how I got there, if I'm being honest, but I remember like I felt like I was going to die that night. And that morning, the next morning when I woke up, I smoked another cigarette, but I was just thinking like, okay, maybe I should slow down or like figure out something else to do because I don't think that I'm ready to die right now.
Did your dad ever come up during those times?
No, I think, I didn't really have many, I guess I didn't really start to have like connection or like, yeah, any type of like connection or anything, thoughts or anything about my dad until I'd say maybe after I started training,
Okay.
and then I kind of
Yeah.
like started I was doing something now that like I needed encouragement in a way and I needed support in a way.
Gotcha.
And I was just kind of like, okay, like then I'd start thinking about, like, okay, what would my dad want me to do? Or like, what would make him proud? Or, if I were my dad, how would I handle this situation? Like that's where those kind of thoughts started to come in, but I never really considered them in my early ages, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it never came up. It was kind of like almost as if you grew up without a dad, and that was kind of normal. So it just went that way until, like you said, your brain you start to develop who you are, and
Yeah.
is that probably when it happened? When you
Yeah.
started thinking about it?
I think so. Um, Yeah, I mean, like we always had reminders, in my house, like because we always kept my dad's memorabilia like hanging on the walls and stuff. So I always had reminders, but at that part, like I was never even thinking about like a future. I told you in an early age, I already kind of had this idea like I'm gonna die, somebody's gonna kill me. So I
Mm,
wasn't ever really like I never had my mind set on the future. And I never had my mind set on like really being an adult. I never really thought like, oh, when I get older, or like when I'm 35 or when I'm 40. Like, I never thought about that.
yeah.
Never, man. Like I didn't think about that.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm gonna die next year. I'm gonna die this year, whatever. Like I'm not gonna save money. I'm not gonna be healthy. Like what the fuck for? You know what I mean? Like life is short. I'm gonna die any day. So like, why am I preparing for a future that's not there?
Yeah.
you know? So that was, yeah. So it's really not until, like I said, like that I started training and starting to have more of like a vision and like an idea of where I'm going, that I started to think and started to kind of consider like, okay, like what would my dad think of this right now?
Wow.
Yeah.
When was that first thought, and like how did that feel to tap into that?
Um, it might have been around like my first or second fight. Um, I think it felt good because when I started fighting, I had my brother with me. The brother that's only 5 years older. We started it together, and so
Mm,
that kind of helped because like he was in a very similar situation to me. Like um, yeah, he was in a very very similar situation. So it gave us both an outlet um for like our emotions and frustrations and depressions and stuff because we lived in the same house at the same time. So if we were like taking the bus to the gym or catching a ride with a friend at the gym or whatever, we were always together. And like I said, my dad took him in before I was even born. So, um, I think it was like around my first or second fight where he might have even mentioned it or something, or say like, oh, your dad would have been proud of you, you know, your dad, like, I'm sure your dad's proud of you right now, like something like that. And, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it felt good. It definitely felt good because, um, yeah, like I said, it was that time where like I was starting to become a man and I wanted, if anything, I started to think, oh, like my dad, he's a man, he had a child, like I'm an adult now. I understand how life works. Um, and so, yeah, I'm going to make sure that like whatever I do is going to make him proud, and his friends, if they hear about me, then they'll be like, they'll be proud too. I started just to consider other people because it was no longer just about me anymore, especially the fact that I was like becoming an adult and starting to understand, things in a different way.
yeah. Well, it sounded like you have a clear mind as soon as you got into the gym and started training. Like it
Yeah.
was kind of like all that went away.
Yeah, I think training mixed martial arts definitely helped me to have a more clear mind. It takes a certain amount of effort. You can't really focus on a lot when you're focused on training because
Yeah.
there's a lot to consider, there's a lot to think about, and
Right.
overall, like number one thing that kept me from really being able to focus on anything else was just like how tired I was every day after training. I
Yep.
had no time to go out. I had no time or energy to like do anything. I didn't even want to hang out with anybody. I was just shot from the gym. but I loved going to the gym. So, um, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, my thought process shifted and I was just kind of more focused on like what's going to help me to like make it through tomorrow. Like, how am I going to get this technique right so that this guy doesn't like this guy will stop choking me, you know, like,
Wow.
like that was more of where my mind was going.
Yeah. So what? So as soon as you stepped in the gym, did you know right away, like, this is it? This is my path.
After the first day, I knew I was hooked. I had no intentions on being a fighter ever. I just knew that it was something that I liked and that I wanted to continue to go to. Um, I I went to an MMA fight maybe 3 or 4 months after I started training, and that's kind of what sparked the inspiration for me to try it. I was like, "Oh, I want to do this," and my coach was like, "Okay, if you lose 100 pounds, then we'll do it." So, um, I just kept going to the gym, and I kept, talking about how I wanted to fight, and I realized that like if I wanted to do this, that I really had to lose 100 pounds. So I just upped my training and I just got more focused and within 11 months I ended up losing 100 pounds. And
Wow.
yeah, and I got my first fight because it was just something that I really wanted to try. I'd never really gotten to a fight before. Like I never got into a one-on-one fist fight really, like a real one. Anything else was like at shows or like, like defending a friend and it's just like a big group fight. But like to have a date and a time, like meet me here, not even in school, it was like, okay, meet me here at the park, I didn't have that. I like shied away from that stuff. So this was the first time in my life at 20, 21 years old that um I was like really getting into like my first fist fight. um
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I was wondering if I'm the only one, like, because I was scared to death to ever get in a fight.
yeah.
So, man, to hear you say that, I'm like, okay, I'm not just being a chicken. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
I mean
just.
it's not
It's
it's
scary.
it's not for everyone, dude. Like just because you're a guy doesn't mean that you necessarily like want to fight or like have to fight. You get me? Like
Yeah.
think about the shows that we watch, from just like 1800s, like those time like it's the different era of time, even if you go back to like, watching like 300 and stuff like that. Like there were guys who went to fight and then there were guys who stayed back, like
No, thank
it's
you.
from the beginning of time. It's like there's always been guys who just are attracted to that thing and who are willing to like, put their lives on the line for something like that and get hurt. But there's also the men who are just like, you know what? I'm gonna chill back here. I'll make your sword for you. Like I'll make you your armor. I'll even like I'll take the stats, but I don't want to be the guy taking the punches. So there's nothing wrong with it, man, at all.
Yeah. 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 I'm the guy that will hype you up. I'll get you all excited about it, and then you can go do what you got to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
me.
need we need those
Um,
guys. We need those guys.
yeah. I heard you say in a post fight interview, I'm now becoming a man that faces confrontation instead of running from it, or
Yeah,
instead of distracting myself from it. Um, so is that kind of it? Like what you were running from? Like,
yeah. I mean, like I never like confrontation. Like even just like on a daily basis with people. Um, I don't like confrontation, man.
hmm,
Like I'm a guy who like I like to just keep things cool. If like oh you don't agree, oh you don't agree, okay, cool, go your separate ways. Like that's my mentality.
yeah,
And like even for me, if like when it comes to just like my own personal thoughts or opinions, if I have a thought or an opinion and I voice it and the other person doesn't agree, I don't necessarily have the feeling or the wanting to even like argue back. Just like, okay, cool. happy believing and doing what I'm doing. Like, I don't, if you want to go jump off a bridge, go ahead. Like, that's up to you, you know? Like, I'll tell you it's
Yeah.
not a good idea, but I'm not gonna fight you over it unless you're someone I care about. So, like, and that's a bad analogy, but like, whatever.
No, I get you. That's a real breath of fresh air to hear that because I think that's another thing I really want to do with this podcast is show people like just because you fight in the UFC doesn't mean that's who you are. Like you're
Yeah.
just down to fight whenever.
So what I said in the post fight interview, what contradicts that is I'm like no longer running from that, right? And I'm no longer like running from it or shying away from it. I'm now like stepping and embracing it and like being in the face of confrontation. But that's also just when I speak of that, it's more in like when it comes to my own battles and my own obstacles. You know, if there's an obstacle in front of me that seems like, damn, this is huge. I can't do this. Like that's where I confront it, you know? So it's
Mm,
like the confrontation in like my obstacles in life. If in fighting, right? Like fighting can sometimes suck, but I can't get stuck in the feelings and emotions of like, oh, this sucks. I have to confront that. Like I've got to confront myself and just be like, no, smack myself, like wake up, like you've got something to do in front of you. Don't run from it. Don't ignore it. Like this is the task in front of you. Face it,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
and even like when I'm working out and like cardio and mostly cardio because I feel like that's what majority of people hate. And I feel like for me, um, a part of that confrontation is like, if I feel like I'm about to give up, then I like, I go harder, like confronting that thing and like really going and giving my 100% in the gym and the 130%, million percent, really going and exhausting myself and that those thoughts that are telling me to give up and to quit and to do and confronting them and going through them, like really pushing myself to like my own physical limits and not taking it easy on myself. That's the mentality that I've adopted, especially in training. And in life gets hard. Sometimes I want to just like sit around and do nothing, but like
Sure.
I've got to rise up and I've got to keep moving forward and and confront my issues, like not ignore them, confront it. What am I running from? What's going on? Why am I late? Like not lazy, but like why, whatever the question may be at the time.
Yeah. That's really inspirational. I heard one of my friends tell me he went to I can't tell you exactly what it was. I just know it was a leadership program
Yeah.
for his master's, and he said something so simple, just the 5 whys. Just ask yourself why.
Huh.
Get an answer, ask yourself why again. Get an answer, ask yourself why again. And there's the 5 whys, and usually you get to the bottom of things really fast. So
Where
it sounds like you do
where
that.
does this friend live?
He's in North Carolina. Yeah, engineer.
Do you know where the leadership program was?
I I don't.
Was it
I
in
can
North Carolina?
try. I think it was. I can try to see what it was.
Cool. And then you said for his master's, so he was getting a master's degree,
Yeah,
and then he had to go to a leadership program.
yeah,
Sick. I mean, yeah, I've done some leadership stuff before. It's really cool. It's really empowering, and I think it's something too that allows you to kind of go internally and ask yourself these questions because
yeah.
yeah, man, like I think that these are important things, especially for someone who does want to be a leader, and
Hmm.
I claim myself to be a leader in my own authentic way, not by like necessarily trying to be a leader, but I think that like true leaders are themselves through and through, right? They're like their most
Sure.
authentic selves. And they kind of, my favorite leaders are the ones that lead not only by example, but almost like without even trying. Like,
Yep. Yep.
like by maybe it's just by ways of like writing or living or being. And it's just like, yeah, I want to follow that guy because he's just like, he's cool, you know?
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah,
those
and
things are
making
important.
people, yeah, I always want to see my friends come up, and if they're like, "Hey, you did something that was," I'm like, "Wow, that's great, perfect," So,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely feel like you are a leader. I mean, it's just by expressing yourself the way you do. I feel like, and saying what you said in the post fight interview, um, I feel like that's going to empower a lot of people to really dig deep and see what's going on with them. And hearing your story, I feel like that will really empower people to realize like their stories aren't so different, you know. Um, and one thing you said, what did you say? You said something. Oh, you said you wouldn't say drug use was, because some people have drug use that's way worse, right?
Yeah, yeah, like drug abuse.
Drug abuse for sure, but I feel like no matter how big or small your story is, it still matters. Like you like you said in your post-fight interview, So hearing that, I feel like everyone learns from it,
Yeah,
The more
yeah,
we talk about ourselves and our struggles and our our hardships and things we've overcome, the more everybody grows. So thank you so
yeah.
much for saying all this stuff. I wanted to ask you one of the questions I wanted to ask you is in your last fight, um well in a few of your fights, you see this deep primitive rage come out. Dude, it is fantastic to watch because I feel like we all have that.
Yeah,
We
man.
all have that.
Yeah,
But did that come out in your like early training, early life, or is that
um,
something?
yeah, all of the above. I think all the boxes tick. If if I were getting like fights with my brothers or like with family members, just like tussling in the bedroom or something, it like that was always like my fighting style. It's just like my brothers and like siblings and cousins and stuff would never really like they knew that they could only poke me for so long before I just went full like tornado like rage mode. That was my thing. And, like they could poke at me and joke and make fun of me, but if they pushed me too far, that would just like snap and go crazy and not know what to do afterward. So also when I first started fighting and training, um, my brother gave me the nickname the War Horse early on in my amateur days because he said it was almost like as soon as the bell rang, it was like like a gate had opened and like I just was like a horse like running straight into war. And I dropped that a while ago because I just didn't like it. But yeah, that was always my style. But um in the past I didn't really have the cardio to back it up. And so like I would get tired really fast. And so um now like I just know that when the opportunities present themselves, I can still let that style of fighting out because there's really nothing personal. It has nothing to do with like the other guy other than you're the one that chose to be in the cage with me. So,
Sure.
that's the only thing personal. But uh yeah, it's just one of my styles of fighting. And I think that it just comes from just who I am and what I've been through that part just kind of Like being able to fight in the cage allows that part to come out.
Yeah. Um, question: have you ever gone to therapy?
Yeah,
I'll
I've
tell
done
you
some
why
therapy.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I've done some therapy before. I've done different forms of therapy. I've done emotional intelligence trainings. Um, yeah, I've taken like some pretty cool uh courses, and yeah, I've done forms of therapy, hypnotherapy, things like that too.
Has it ever scared you that you'll lose that rage or like lose that stuff that makes you a fighter?
Nah,
No.
nah. Like I can never lose it, you know. I mean, I don't want to say never, but like maybe when I'm like older and I just don't care about, fighting anymore. We can
Yeah.
only like I think it'll be there so long as I feel like my body's able to like, keep up with that. But yeah, I don't think that like therapy ever scared me from uh, not being able to access that because I do
Yeah.
enough work and stuff that I've done in therapy to just be more okay and more comfortable with who I am. And if that's who I am and that's a part of who I am, then that's what it's going to be. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
no, you're absolutely right. It's not going to go away. I was just wondering because I wonder that. I wonder if there's like, some fighters, if they think they'll lose it. I've heard some people say that they were afraid to go to therapy because they're afraid they'll lose all of that good stuff that makes them who they are, what they do. And yeah, you're right. You
But
don't lose it.
yeah, some people may, like there are some people that kind of like cling to that. But I also think that a big part of that fear of losing it comes from maybe fighters who their identity solely lies in fighting, right? It's like,
Right.
like most fighters don't really have an identity outside of fighting. Once
Yeah.
like a lot of fighters build their names and their careers and their fame and everything inside of the cage. And under the UFC umbrella or Bellator umbrella, because it's like without fighting, sometimes we feel like we're nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're just a
Yeah.
normal, like, we're just your everyday civilian that's got you know, some aggression that we don't mind letting out. But without that, like, yeah, without that UFC title or ability to fight, then we may feel like we don't have anything, which is
Sure.
another reason why like I love to do and spend time doing the things I love. And
Yeah, I was going to ask what else do you love to do outside of the octagon?
um lately, um lately I've been reading a lot and just doing a lot of like research and like study and talking about like Bitcoin and finance and just really like picking the brains of a lot of the um smart people and like pioneers behind this like amazing brand new technology. And outside of that, it's like I'm really into like merchandise design, and I run my own like clothing and apparel line. And
What do you got? Tell us.
I own a brand called
Okay.
Such Limited. And um I also have like a Discord channel where like any customers who buy anything, then I send them an email to invite them into the Discord. And like in the Discord is just another way to connect with me over like topics of like music, crypto, VR, MMA, whatever. It's just kind of like my safe haven. So it's like, hey, you like my merch? Cool. Here's an invite to my Discord where we can just talk about anything. You get me? So like really trying
Yeah.
to build a community um of people who have like similar interests in skateboarding, 90s alternative, kind of like that's a lot of my inspiration. because I was born in 90, but like, so like the late 90s, early 2000s is kind of like a lot of the like music and fashion and stuff that like shaped me.
Yep.
And so I have friends with similar interests. Like I said, I've had the same friends for, 15 plus years. So a lot of them are in it, and it just kind of keeps me connected to like a part of who I am. And yeah, I like to design, shirts and hats and clothes. I'm really into fashion. Um, I really like, I just started modeling. I just started acting. Um, just like lately, yeah, I mean, there's so many things like I like to collect. I like to collect like hats and sneakers, and I draw, and like I put out a few NFTs. Like I just do anything and everything I can in my free time.
Everything. Sounds
Yeah.
like it. Sounds like everything.
Music, like I can literally spend an entire day just, you know, like down a Spotify wormhole, and just trying to discover new music and read lyrics and learn about like, oh, where'd this band come from? Like just
Yep.
I just like to be who I was before fighting every single day, and kind of
Yeah.
like live my teenage dreams. Yeah.
Well, I feel like, we grow a lot from that, right?
Yeah.
Um, when I had a kid, I my whole childhood came up. It's crazy. You
Yeah.
have any kids?
Not yet. No.
Yet? You want kids?
Yeah. Yeah. We have like, I have plans with my fiance. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll start trying at the end of the year so we can have one next year.
That's awesome, man. I will
Yeah.
definitely be praying for you. They're fantastic. They're
Yeah.
amazing. It's a wild trip because they bring up a lot of stuff like from your childhood. You know what I mean? Like I'll be doing stuff with my daughter and I'll be like, "Oh my God, I remember that as a kid. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy."
Yeah.
Um yeah, so what else? What did I want to ask you? Oh, Such. What is Such? Where does that come from?
So, I used to live in Thailand. I lived there for a couple of years, and in Thailand, I went there to go study and train Muay Thai. And when some of the Thai like community, they found out that I was a fighter, and they saw they saw a few of my fights on YouTube. Then they started calling me Super Champ, like Super Champ, but in Thai accent, it's Super Champ. So I never wanted to have merchandise that like had my name on it, like, oh, Khalil Rountree, because like I don't want to be hanging out with my brother or you and like you're wearing my name. I just didn't want that,
Right.
really.
I get it.
So I just started putting Super Champ like on merchandise. And then especially in Thailand, in a place where like there's a lot of street markets, and like people who just like make clothing for like really cheap. I just started like spending my free time walking around Bangkok and like getting merchandise made, just for
Wow.
myself. And then so
Yeah.
I kind of started a brand like that way. And then I brought it to America when I moved back, and it just didn't have the same essence. And like people were calling it Super Champ, and just putting just like, our American accent on it. And I just was like, this isn't it. Like, this doesn't have the same vibe. Like, I'm not even like walking around in the streets, like just making stuff out of nothing. I'm placing orders with manufacturers. Like, it wasn't the same thing. So I figured like if I wanted to keep it going, then I had to, um, I had to like make it more American, because I'm back here in the States now, and like business is just different here. And,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to make it more marketable. And, like Super Champ is a very long, like word and name to brand. And I was having some like branding issues. So I just shortened it. I took the SU from Super and the CH from Champ, and I just made Such. And, yeah, so now it's like Such dot limited is the website, and limited because like I've chosen to make just like, I know that I go through phases a lot. And so I kind of design my collections based off of kind of where I'm at and whatever phase I'm in right now. So like the latest collections have been very like primarily black, and I've got this like spiked ball right now as kind of like not the logo, but it like kind of sits as a logo for now, like the end of a mace, it's like a ball with spikes, like
Yeah,
so yeah, like that's kind of what I'm running with the logo right now, and that's just kind of like where I'm at with, I started, yeah, I'm starting to kind of like tap back into this, early high school look that I was going for, just kind of like primarily black, heavy black, baggy, very baggy clothing, very like laid back, relaxed. But so the stuff that I'm making is limited. I do like maybe 25 pieces, and then who knows, like springtime it might be something completely different. You know what I mean? So
sure.
like if
Yeah.
you're a fan of it and if you're a follower of me, then by later on down the line, like it's meant to be like collector's items in a way. It's not necessarily like this crazy widespread, brand, more of just it's more personal.
That's awesome. That's
Thanks.
inspirational. I mean, the fact that you're in Thailand to train and fight, and then you start a clothing line out of nowhere from inspiration. That's really cool.
Thanks, man.
Um, yeah. So tell me, you said the post fight interview that we played, you wanted
Yeah.
to help people in the future. Tell me how you want to do that.
So one of the main things, and the most like fun and creative way that I want to do it is so just similar story to what I just told you about like the Super Champ name. Um, while I was in Thailand, I actually started writing and and sketching a graphic novel. So that turns into the or that ties into the story I was telling you earlier about how I was when I was a kid, I never had any black superheroes to look up to. So I wrote this story of that's very similar to my life story, but the superhero in this story goes by the name Superchamp, or he gets the name Superchamp kind of in a very dramatic way, but kind of similar to how I got it. He gets it in Thailand. He ends up, I'd have to tell the story like in short. So, um, there's a lot of, with this story, there's a lot of my inner dialogue I've turned into and I've characterized like my inner demons as like physical demons and things like that he fights.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
like, yeah, so like, and his superpower is something that's very close to or similar to like intuition. So with the graphic novel and hopefully like a graphic like series on visually, because I feel like there's a lot of how I speak and how I perceive life is how I've written the story too. So, like I said, like if I'm dealing with, inner demons or battling, my own thoughts, then I characterize them and like putting like a face to them, and then like how I speak to them in my brain is how he speaks to them in the story, and then how they speak back is just how I hear it. And then when the fight happens, it's very like, it's very deep, and I feel like that's going to be a really, really cool way for me to give back in a way as well.
Yeah.
Um, because I feel like if people hear about what I'm up to and what I want to do, then if I put out a story in a graphic novel, then hopefully they like subscribe to it and then they read it and then it does something good for them. Um, and provide some type of like hope or insight or even entertainment. So like that along with, part of such. So like Super Champ, turning that into more of like a graphic novel and a character, and such itself, like as a company and like my business and like company goals is to have a place where is like a one-stop shop. Um, like ideally in Las Vegas, where I could have. So also after school, if I had a place that I could go to, like almost like an after school program, that would have saved me from a lot of stuff too, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
the idea that I have for like a flagship for such is a place where I have inside, um, like a mini ramp, like a mini half pipe,
Hmm.
mats for training, a coffee shop, like a little like music area that has like vinyls, records, all type of like music to search through. Also a store where you can shop merchandise. And then I also want to have a place that is almost like just like seats for people to sit where I can bring in maybe like once or twice a month, bring in someone to just like speak or teach a class on like graphic design or emotional intelligence or like, here's what you can do instead of going to college. You can, you know, you know, here's how to day trade. Here's what the stock market means. Like just bring like a one-stop shop for, like almost like a community center, but
Yeah.
it's all run by the brand, and like that's like the brand representation. And what it means is like having a safe place to go and gain inspiration through martial arts, music, skateboarding, or tech or fashion.
That's
And so
awesome.
like, yeah. And then being a part of that, I think, that would be able to bring a lot of just like outreach programs and just be able to kind of funnel people into one place versus me trying to funnel myself into a million different places.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause that's very
Where
hard. It's
where would
very
you do
draining.
that?
I'd like to do it in Vegas
Start in Vegas.
because like that's where I'm from. And also like Vegas has nothing like that. And I feel
Yep.
like when people think Las Vegas, obviously they think the strip and gambling, and they don't think about like how we're like ranked 49 out of 50 something in the school. Like, we're the very bottom of the education, you
Hmm.
know, bracket in the country. And, there's not much really to do there. And there's people that don't want to play football or baseball or like go to college. They want to do something else. So
Yep.
just being able to kind of be that person or have that place in my hometown that kind of gives people a like a view out, because most people that are in Vegas from Vegas or that move there kind of get stuff there and they don't have a way out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dude, you have so much in your head,
Yeah.
and it's great. Like I feel like you are spot on so many things. Like, there's so many things that are exciting that you got going on. Keep going because I want to see all this.
Yeah, I mean, for now they're just ideas. Yeah,
Get them
I
on
think,
paper.
yeah,
Get them down.
the more that I guess share them, the more my chances are of like them coming to life. Because
Hmm.
if like if there's one thing that I've learned is that like we can't really do anything in this world alone, right?
Sure.
And like we need people, we need support system, and you definitely can't help people alone. Like you got to have people that are there with you, kind of a team. So yeah, I think the more that I share it, the more that people will kind of get on board with the vision, and then hopefully, somewhere in the near future, it can all start coming to life.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
man.
it's all smart stuff. I think got to push forward on those because they're all really exciting.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and listen, man, thank you so much for sharing everything. Um, I just want to ask you, like, is there anything that you feel like you wanted to share that you didn't get the opportunity to?
Um, no, not really. I feel like I've covered pretty much everything. I mean, like as much as we've, like opened up,
Yeah.
there's always more to open up, but it's
Oh,
just
sure.
yeah, yeah, I think it, whoever listens to this should be able to get like a pretty good idea of like who I am and what I'm up to and where I come from, and that,
Yeah.
I do care that they get some type of inspiration in life and just keep going forward, because like you never know what's at the end, like never know what's at the end. You just got to keep going no matter what pace. Doesn't matter who's next to you, if they're running faster, if they've lapped you 10 times, like you got to just stay steady and just finish the race. Finish the race of life. Don't give up.
That's it. That's definitely it. So get on to your stuff and finish the race. I'm seriously like, I was totally into everything that you were talking about, especially the story about your life, like the way you said your inner fights, and you're gonna have those as physical people. Like that, you got to write that down, because that's good.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds really good.
Yeah, and there's definitely more to it, and it's going to be really good, and it's something that I'm like passionate about, um and yeah, I'd hope to be able to find someone. I draw a little bit, but nowhere near like the vision that I have for like a good graphic novel. So yeah, hopefully find some people that want to collaborate, help write, like co-author, and we get this show on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, I hope somebody hears this and they're like, I'm the guy.
Yeah,
I'll help you out. Right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. My pleasure.
The Heart of the Bad Wolf is created and hosted by Nicholas James Muscarella, produced by Nicholas James Muscarella and Robert Altschuler, edited, recorded, and mixed by Robert Altschuler at Command Creative Studios. Music by Alex Grohl. Special thanks to every fighter who shared their story and their wolf. Don't forget to hit the like, follow, and subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform to get notified when new episodes drop. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Heart of the Bad Wolf.